Before diving into the video, did you know that over 80% of you watching right now aren't subscribed? Your one like and one subscribe means the absolute world to this channel and helps us keep going. Hit those buttons real quick and let's get into the video. Chapter 1. The Reserved Mogul. By the time Victor Vance turned 30, his name was known across the entire financial district. He was a prominent figure on the nation's wealth rankings, a self-made billionaire whose quiet intensity and sharp business acumen had earned him undisputed respect. To the outside world, he was a man who possessed everything: wealth, status, power, and flawless reputation. Yet behind the closed doors of his high-rise executive suite, Victor lived a life defined by solitude. The tragedy of his past, the painful breakdown of his early marriage, the chaotic betrayal, and the ultimate, quiet death of his ex-wife had long since settled into quiet history. He held no lingering bitterness or hatred. He had simply processed his grief, locked his memories away, and thrown his entire being into building his corporate empire. He was a sentimental man by nature, but life had taught him to be realistic. He knew how to move forward, even if moving forward meant walking alone. On a rainy Tuesday afternoon, Victor sat in his office reviewing Q4 revenue forecasts when his phone rang. The caller was Marcus Reed, the chairman of Reed Enterprises and one of Victor's most important international clients. The upcoming joint venture between their companies represented the cornerstone of Victor's expansion strategy for the year. "Victor, my boy," Marcus's booming voice echoed through the speaker. "I have a personal favor to ask of you." "Anything within my power, Chairman Reed," Victor replied politely, setting his pen down. "What can I do for you?" "It's my daughter, Chloe," Marcus sighed, though there was obvious fondness in his tone. "She graduated from university this spring. I wanted her to join the family firm, but she stubbornly refuses. She insists on gaining experience elsewhere first. She has her heart set on working at your headquarters. Do you have any suitable positions open?" Victor didn't hesitate. When dealing with a client whose partnership dictated the company's financial future, the answer was always yes. Even if no position existed, he would create one out of thin air. "We would be honored to have her, Chairman Reed," Victor said warmly. "Send her to my office tomorrow morning. I'll ensure she's well taken care of." Chapter 2. The Midsummer Sunset. What Victor did not know was that Chloe Reed had not chosen his company on a whim. 10 years prior, when Chloe was just a 15-year-old high school student, her family's driver had picked her up from school on a scorching midsummer afternoon. As their air-conditioned luxury sedan crawled through the heavy city traffic, Chloe had looked out the tinted window and noticed two young people walking along the blistering sidewalk. It was a young Victor and his former wife, Evelyn. At that time, Victor was in his early 20s, completely broke, disheveled, and desperately trying to secure investment capital for his fledgling startup. They had just been turned away from Reed Enterprises' main lobby after waiting for hours. Evelyn had twisted her ankle in her worn-out high heels and was leaning against a brick wall, wiping away tears of pain and frustration. Chloe watched as the young man, without a penny to his name, knelt down in front of the young woman. Without a single word of complaint, bitterness, or discouragement, Victor gently lifted her onto his back. As he carried her down the sun-drenched street beneath the blazing sunset, a tender, beautiful smile rested on his face. He spoke softly to her, comforting her, entirely unbothered by his own exhaustion or the humiliation of being rejected by wealthy executives. That single glance from a passing car became the first of many. Over the next decade, Chloe quietly kept track of Victor Vance. She watched from afar as he built an empire from nothing through sheer grit and intelligence. She watched as his youthful brightness slowly hardened into mature, guarded reserve. She watched his marriage deteriorate, saw the public rumors of his ex-wife's infidelity, and witnessed the stoic composure with which he bore his personal grief. She had loved the disheveled, relentlessly determined young man carrying his wife on his back, and she loved the quiet, dignified billionaire he had become. She knew he did not know she existed. She knew he was 10 years older than her, guarded, and emotionally distant. But she didn't care. She didn't want his money or his status. She simply wanted to be near him, to bring a light back into a life that had spent too many years in the dark. Chapter 3. The New Personal Assistant. The next morning, Chloe arrived at Vance headquarters promptly at 8 o'clock. She was fresh out of college, dressed in a simple, elegant navy dress with her thick dark hair tied neatly into a soft bun. She possessed a sweet, innocent air, with bright, expressive eyes and an adorably gentle demeanor. When Victor summoned her into his office, he looked up from his desk and felt an instinctive wave of protective senior warmth. "You're Chloe, right?" Victor asked, offering a gentle, welcoming smile as he gestured toward the leather chair opposite his desk. "Your father told me about your situation. Is there any specific department or position you're interested in exploring? Marketing, finance, public relations?" Chloe sat down, smoothing her skirt, and looked directly into his eyes with absolute certainty. "I want to be your personal assistant, CEO Vance." Victor blinked, slightly caught off guard. Being the chief executive's personal assistant was a demanding, high-pressure job involving grueling hours, complex scheduling, and delicate corporate diplomacy. It was hardly a comfortable placement for a pampered heiress. However, Victor quickly rationalized it. If Chairman Reed's daughter wanted to be his assistant, he would simply design a custom role tailored specifically for her safety and comfort. Her official duties would be minimal: unlocking his office in the morning, turning on the lights, and managing basic filing. He would handle the heavy workload himself. "If that is what you desire, the position is yours," Victor said warmly. "Welcome to the team, Chloe." Chapter 4. The Way to a Man's Heart. Within her first week, Chloe proved to be exceptionally dedicated. She was never late, never left early, and greeted every staff member with genuine kindness. Despite everyone knowing she was the daughter of a major stakeholder, her polite, unpretentious nature made it impossible for anyone to dislike her. Victor was pleased. His important project with Reed Enterprises remained secure, and his office environment was pleasant. However, by the third week, a curious pattern began to emerge that thoroughly puzzled the billionaire mogul. Every afternoon, around 12 o'clock, Chloe would set a beautifully arranged thermal bento box on Victor's desk. It had started innocently enough. A week earlier, Victor had walked past Chloe's desk on his way to a board meeting and noticed her opening a small container of home-cooked glazed salmon and steamed rice. He had paused and remarked offhandedly, "That smells delicious, Chloe. Your family chef is very talented." Chloe's eyes had immediately lit up with bright enthusiasm. "I actually cooked it myself, CEO Vance. Shall I bring an extra portion for you tomorrow?" With several senior managers watching, Victor had felt it would be rude to decline a sweet gesture from a young junior staff member. "As long as it isn't too much trouble for you," he had replied politely. "It's no trouble at all," she had beamed. From that moment on, there was no stopping her. Every single day, a completely new, gourmet spread appeared on his desk. Chinese regional specialties, refined Western cuisine, delicate broths, freshly baked pastries, and perfectly balanced healthy lunches. She prepared them all with incredible skill. For nearly a month, Victor ate her cooking every afternoon, and she did not repeat a single dish once. Surprised by the culinary quality, Victor had privately contacted her father to confirm if Chloe was truly cooking the food herself. Marcus had laughed heartily over the phone, confirming that Chloe had taken intensive culinary and pastry masterclasses throughout her university years and spent hours in the kitchen every evening. Victor sat at his desk, eating a piece of tender braised beef she had prepared, shaking his head in quiet wonder. He couldn't comprehend how a pampered heiress born with a silver spoon could be so passionate about domestic cooking. Whoever married her in the future, he thought with a dry smile, would probably gain 20 pounds in a single month. Chapter 5. The Morning After the Gala. At the end of the fiscal year, Vance Enterprises announced record-breaking annual profits. To celebrate, the board hosted a grand corporate gala at the city's finest hotel. As the host of the evening, Victor was toasted repeatedly by board members, investors, and city officials. Pleased with the company's performance, he drank more alcohol than usual. Chloe, who had attended as his assistant, did not touch a single drop due to a severe alcohol allergy. By midnight, Victor was noticeably tipsy. He was not blackout drunk. His composed nature simply made him extremely quiet and docile when intoxicated. He leaned back against the leather seat of his private car, while Chloe quietly drove him back to his penthouse apartment. When they arrived, Chloe helped him navigate the hallway and guided him onto his bed. "You can go home now, Chloe," Victor murmured, closing his eyes as his head hit the pillow. "You don't need to look after me." Chloe didn't leave. Knowing he had consumed too much alcohol on an empty stomach, she quietly took off her blazer, smoothed out the guest bedroom, and stayed the night to monitor him. Victor slept more deeply that night than he had in years. For the first time in a decade, he dreamed of his youth and of Evelyn. In the dream, the young Evelyn stood in a sunlit field, smiling at him without any of the bitterness or grief that had defined their final years. "Will you come back?" Dream Victor asked softly. Young Evelyn smiled gently and shook her head. "No, Vic. You already have someone who loves you now, so it's time for me to finally leave too." Victor's eyes flew open. Morning sunlight was stubbornly squeezing through the narrow gap in the heavy blackout curtains, illuminating tiny dust motes in the air. Sitting on the edge of his bed, leaning over him with a damp towel in her hands, was Chloe. Her face was only inches from his, her soft eyelashes catching the morning light, and her eyes filled with an overwhelming, deep, and unmistakable affection. Victor froze, his breath catching in his throat. Realizing he was awake and staring directly into her unguarded gaze, Chloe sprang to her feet in absolute panic. She turned in two awkward, flustered circles, nervously touching her nose and smoothing her hair. "Well, I made porridge. Millet porridge," she rambled incoherently, her cheeks flushing bright crimson. "Your refrigerator was practically empty, so I ordered fresh groceries online and stocked it up. And you haven't had a cleaning service come by in a while, have you? I couldn't sleep last night, so I cleaned the entire apartment from top to bottom, and just now, I temporarily lost my mind. Could you please pretend you didn't notice anything? Are you hungry?" Victor slowly sat up against the upholstered headboard, rubbing his temples as his mind cleared. "Chloe!" Her rambling stopped abruptly. She stood near the foot of the bed, her hands clasped tightly together, biting her lower lip. "Do you like me?" Victor asked quietly, his voice deep with morning gravel. Chloe lowered her head, silent for a long moment, before giving a soft, honest hum of confirmation. Victor felt a familiar, complicated ache in his head. He massaged his brow, feeling the weight of their 10-year age gap and his heavy emotional history. "When did this start?" Chloe raised her eyes softly. "Since I was 15. Victor paused, genuinely bewildered. "We've met before? I thought the day you joined the company was the first time we ever saw each other." Chloe gave a small, tender smile. "We have. You just didn't see me." Chapter 6. Unconditional Freedom. Sitting at his dining table over a warm bowl of millet porridge, Victor listened in quiet silence as Chloe recounted the story of the midsummer sunset 10 years ago. She told him about seeing him carry his former wife on his back, about watching his rise through the business world, about seeing his heart get broken, and about watching him rebuild his life with quiet, uncomplaining dignity. She explained how she had spent years quietly preparing herself, learning how to cook, how to manage, and how to care for someone, simply waiting until she was old enough to stand beside him. "I know how much you've suffered in the past, Victor," Chloe said softly, sitting across from him. "And I know there is a 10-year age gap between us. I know that when I joined your company, you only saw me as a client's spoiled daughter that you needed to take care of." Victor looked at her, his expression filled with complex emotion. "Chloe, I am a man with a heavy past. I spent years in a broken marriage, and my heart was guarded for a very long time. You are young, wealthy, brilliant, and have your whole life ahead of you. You shouldn't waste your youth on someone who has already been through the storm." Chloe reached across the table and gently laid her warm hand over his. Her gaze was steady, pure, and entirely devoid of the selfish manipulation Victor had experienced in his previous relationship. "You don't need to feel burdened because of my feelings, Victor," Chloe said gently, her voice ringing with absolute sincerity. "I am not asking you to make promises, nor will I ever use my family's business or my feelings to pressure you. Loving you is my own choice. I love you, Victor, but you are completely free." Those words, "you are completely free," struck Victor like a warm light piercing through an old, forgotten wound. For years, love had meant obligation, guilt, manipulation, and sacrifice. He had never experienced a love that offered everything while demanding nothing in return. Chapter 7. Claiming Happiness. Victor Vance was no longer the foolish young man who allowed life to pass him by, nor was he the cynical man who hid behind corporate walls. He was a man who knew how to recognize genuine worth when it stood right in front of him. Over the next 6 months, Victor stopped treating Chloe like a junior assistant or a client's daughter. He began taking her to dinner, accompanying her on quiet evening walks, listening to her talk about her passions, and letting her warm presence gradually dismantle every boundary he had built around his heart. He realized that her devotion was not a fleeting childhood crush, but a deep, mature, and unshakable partnership. When Victor was 35 and Chloe was 25, they were married in a breathtaking, intimate private ceremony surrounded by close friends and family. Naturally, the news of the high-profile union sent shockwaves through the business community and internet forums. Critics and tabloids spewed endless gossip. Some accused Victor of being a predator chasing a woman 10 years his junior, while others snidely claimed Chloe was an ambitious social climber marrying for money. However, The rumors quickly disintegrated under the weight of reality. Mutual business associates publicly clarified that Chloe had pursued Victor for a decade, while online investigators quickly discovered that Chloe was the sole heiress to the massive Reed Enterprises fortune and had zero need for Victor's wealth. Gossip columnists eventually looked on in silent admiration as the couple quietly built a life together. Years passed, and the quiet penthouse was filled with laughter, warmth, the rich aroma of home-cooked meals, and the peaceful starlight of a shared future. Victor had learned the most important lesson of his life. True strength was not just knowing how to endure pain, but knowing when to open your hands and claim the happiness you truly deserved. Chapter 8. The Warmth of Home. The transition from partners to a married couple was a seamless, gentle wave. For the first time in his life, Victor understood what it truly meant to look forward to coming home. The grand penthouse, which had once been a cold, quiet sanctuary of glass and stone, was now filled with life, light, and the lingering scents of lavender, cinnamon, and fresh flowers. Every evening, regardless of how demanding the board meetings had been, Victor made it an absolute rule to leave his office by 6 o'clock. On a crisp autumn evening, he stepped through the front door, slipping off his tailored suit jacket. From the open kitchen, the soft, melodious sound of acoustic music drifted through the air, accompanied by the sizzling sound of a hot skillet. Chloe stood at the island counter, wearing a simple cream sweater, her hair tied in a loose braid. She turned as she heard his footsteps, her eyes brightening instantly with that same unreserved warmth that had captivated him. "Welcome home, Victor," she said softly, setting down a wooden spoon. Victor walked over, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind and pulling her close against his chest. He rested his chin on her shoulder, breathing in the clean scent of vanilla and soap that always lingered around her. "You didn't have to cook tonight," Victor murmured gently, kissing her cheek. "I promised to take you out to that Italian restaurant you want to try." Chloe leaned back against him, covering his hands with hers. "I know, but you looked so exhausted when you left for the morning summit. I wanted to make your favorite stew instead. The restaurant can wait until the weekend." Victor smiled, closing his eyes in quiet contentment. He thought back to his past life, a time when every gesture had carried a hidden price tag, an expectation, or an underlying guilt. With Chloe, love was as natural and effortless as breathing. She cared for him simply because she loved him, and in return, Victor dedicated every single day to ensuring she felt cherished, respected, and safe. Chapter 9. The Family Blessing. A few months later, the Vance and Reed families gathered at Marcus Reed's country estate for an intimate holiday celebration. Marcus Reed, the formidable chairman who had once seemed like an imposing titan of industry, stood on the terrace overlooking the snow-dusted gardens, sipping scotch beside Victor. Marcus watched his daughter through the French doors. Chloe was laughing as she helped her mother set the grand dining table, looking radiant and utterly fulfilled. "I'll admit something to you, Victor," Marcus said, his voice deep and reflective as he turned to his son-in-law. "When Chloe first insisted on working for you, I was furious. I thought she was being naive, throwing herself into the path of a powerful man who had built walls around his heart." Victor nodded respectfully. "I completely understand, Chairman Reed. If I had a daughter, I would have felt the exact same way." Marcus smiled warmly, clapping a heavy, affectionate hand onto Victor's shoulder. "Call me Marcus, Victor. We are family now, and I was wrong. I have never seen my daughter happier, nor have I seen a man treat her with such profound respect and devotion. You haven't just made her happy. You've given her a partner who values her heart above everything else." "She saved me, Marcus," Victor said honestly, looking at Chloe through the glass. "I spent 10 years believing that love was just a transaction. She showed me that true love is unconditional." Later that evening, as the snow fell softly outside, the family gathered around the fireplace. Chloe sat beside Victor on the plush velvet sofa, resting her head against his chest while Victor kept his hand gently intertwined with hers, his thumb tracing soft circles on her knuckles. There were no corporate titles, no wealth rankings, and no public expectations, just a family bound by genuine affection. Chapter 10. A Future Full of Light. 2 years after their wedding, Victor and Chloe stood on the private balcony of their seaside villa, watching the morning sun rise over the golden horizon. The gentle sound of waves crashing against the shore created a soothing, timeless melody. Chloe was wrapped in a soft cashmere blanket, leaning against the balcony railing. Victor walked up behind her, holding 2 warm cups of tea. He handed one to her, then slid his arm around her waist, gently resting his hand over her abdomen, where a subtle, beautiful bump was beginning to show. Chloe looked up, her eyes shining with quiet joy as she rested her hand over his. "What are you thinking about, CEO Vance?" she teased softly. Victor laughed, a low, resonant sound filled with genuine happiness. He leaned down, pressing his forehead against hers. "I was thinking about a midsummer afternoon 15 years ago," he whispered, when a disheveled young man carried his world on his back, having no idea that a little girl in a passing car was holding the key to his entire future. Chloe smiled softly, tears of happiness brimming in her eyes. "She waited a long time for you, Victor, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure she never regrets waiting," Victor promised, his voice rich with conviction. He leaned in, kissing her deeply under the warm, golden morning light. The quiet solitude of his past had vanished completely, replaced by a home filled with laughter, a booming partnership, a blossoming family, and a love that would last a lifetime. Victor held his wife close, looking out at the endless horizon, completely at peace with his past and profoundly grateful for his future.